Hey everybody, it's Mr. Kurtz again. Um, so I'm sending this uh, message today because I've just finished grading all of Lesson 3, the, um, the practice assignment for amending the Constitution and the practice FRQ. And I got to tell you, I was really sort of disappointed with I was really disappointed with the effort that I saw. Um, there were a few of you guys that really nailed it, but the majority of you just were way off. And I don't know whether it's a matter of effort, time management, or not reading, but there needs to be a level of detail that I'm not seeing. You know, the formal amendment process is pretty easy. It's just it's a system. There's four ways that that amendment can be created. It needs to be proposed by 2/3 of both the House and the Senate, or 2/3 of state conventions, 2/3 of the states asking for a national convention. And then it needs to be ratified by 3/4, and that's the key. Those are the key numbers: 2/3 to propose, 3/4 to ratify, either of the state legislatures or of state conventions, which would be 38 state conventions. And then the informal process, you know, I saw answers all over the place. The informal process is not an actual amendment. So a lot of you guys were trying to tie it to how the legislature affected certain amendments or how the president affected certain amendments. No. The informal amendment process is, how does the Constitution get amended and changed informally by the Supreme Court, the presidency, the legislature. And you know, I outlined that in my writing to you, but you really have to know these things, okay? Every time the Supreme Court comes down with a major decision that changes the way we understand the Constitution, not just judicial review, but that's a good example of it. It doesn't have to be the Supreme Court striking down an act of Congress. No. In fact, judicial review would not be that. The example of judicial review, where in Marbury versus Madison, would be a correct example of that. You know, even Roe versus Wade, Brown versus the Board of Education, if we fundamentally change the way that we understand the Constitution, you know, that you know, separate is inherently unequal. You know, that's a new understanding of the Constitution, and that did not come down through an amendment, okay? Same with legislation. If legislation expands some understanding of the Constitution, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 helped us understand what this 14th Amendment really meant. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 expanded the understanding of the Voting Rights Act by forcing several southern states into certain controls that they are not released from until just recently. So, there were some low scores, and so I want you to take those low scores and I want you to say to yourself, okay, you know, I did not really take the time to research this appropriately, okay? Now, as for you know, I'm seeing some of the same issues with the practice FRQs. Again, I'm set, you know, you're going to see a lot of low scores. But even those low scores, I'm being lenient. You know, some of you guys are getting 0 out of 4 points, and I'm still giving you half. But on some people's, you know, I'm seeing very little effort. I know it's an outline, but you know, you have to explain a little bit. You know, uh, you know, or you have to be so confident that you're correct that you're just gonna straight up tell it exactly how it is. You know, so that's kind of the key thing in AP is, yes, you do not need to write 5-page essays, but you better be right. You know, if it says identify or if it says describe, you know, the compromises, then, you know, you better make sure that you're talking about the right compromise or you're not going to get the point. And in this particular instance, the big mistake that people were making was you guys are still thinking about the development of the Constitution as the colonists coming right out of the war. You got to remember their fear of the monarchy and their fear of control. Yeah, I mean it was around still during the creation of the Constitution, but you got to realize that was much more during the Declaration of Independence and the creation of the Articles of Confederation. That is why they created this Articles of Confederation that was too weak. That was too weak. Sorry, that was too weak to be, any good. And so they're not really fearing the monarchy anymore when they're creating the new national government. They've realized that they can't have a government that doesn't have the power to tax, that doesn't have the power to create a military, that doesn't have an executive or a judicial branch. That's why they're creating the Constitution. So you can't say that they're still fearing that, and that's what a lot of you guys are saying. Almost everybody is saying that. Okay, the two big issues have to do with slaves and representation, and those are the compromises that they fix. The Bill of Rights, I love that you guys recognize that people were still worried about individual liberties, but again, that is a reaction to the Constitution that they draw up. They see that the Constitution is lacking that, and that's when the Anti-Federalists start campaigning against the Constitution unless they can get a compromise on the Bill of Rights. So a couple big misconceptions there. I'm sort of warning you guys are going to see some low scores, but I want you guys to bounce back from this and put in a little bit more effort. Okay? All right. If you have any questions, please text me about your scores. If you have any direct questions, email me if it's really long, etc. Okay. Have a great day.